Hello, everyone, and welcome to Police Off the Cuff Real Crime Stories. I'm your host, retired NYPD Sergeant Bill Cannon, a 27-year veteran of the NYPD. Folks, we have another case of a disturbing case, sort of a missing college student. Her name is Sudiksha Konanki, and she's missing from a resort in Punta Cana, Dominican Republic. And many things could have happened here, and a lot of conjecture, of course, but today marks 1 week that Sudiksha has gone missing. And of course, what it involves a lot of, and a lot of these cases do, is drinking, a lot of drinking, and a lot of young people hanging out together, and undetermined whether or not she actually went into the ocean and drowned. That is one of the theories here. But there is what we would call a full court press here looking for Sudiksha. And her family, of course, is in the Dominican Republic. They are frantic. She's only 20 years old. She's a student at the University of Pittsburgh. And we are following this case as well as many others because we have a history of this. We all remember the Natalie Holloway case, and started out as a missing person that became just an absolute disaster. And we're hoping that this case of Sudiksha Konanki will end in a better way. The investigation maybe will turn her up alive. That's what we're all hoping and praying for. Anyway, folks, hold on to your seats. Hold on to your hats. Hold on to your loved ones. Hold on to your cup of coffee. You're about to enter true crime from a police perspective. You're about to enter the off-the-cuff zone, the police off-the-cuff zone. There has to be some common sense.
They were the ones who called 911 to get him help, and now they're calling for change.
And now a word from our sponsor. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for betting on all the madness. Whether you're a seasoned fan or a first-time bettor, BetOnline is your ultimate game day companion. With the largest selection of odds in everything from college basketball to $200,000 bracket contest, BetOnline continues to be your number one sports betting source. From every Cinderella story to every hat trick, BetOnline has you covered with odds, stats, and more for every game, every play, and every win. BetOnline, the game starts here. Folks, Mando whole body deodorant. The thing I like most about Mando body deodorant is that it lasts all day and leaves me feeling clean and fresh. It doesn't quit even under the harshest heat and humidity. The fresh feeling keeps me dry and confident, and no need to worry about unsightly sweat stains. Mando's starter pack is perfect for new customers. It comes with a solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice, like mini body wash and deodorant wipes, and free shipping. As a special offer for listeners, new customers get $5 off a starter pack with our exclusive code. That equates to over 40% of your starter pack. Use code POLICE, police in capital letters, at shopmando.com. Shopmando.com. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Smell fresher, stay drier, and boost your confidence from head to toe with Mando. So I'm going to introduce our 2 co-hosts today, 2 experienced NYPD guys. The first one is retired NYPD Sergeant, professor at Albertus Magnus College in Connecticut, attorney. Welcome to the show, Professor Mike Geary. Welcome, Mike.
Bill, good to see you. Thank you for having me on.
It's great to have you. And we also have a surprise because during the day, usually he hangs upside down in his closet, but he happens to be here straight out of Brooklyn, retired NYPD detective Phil Grimaldi. Welcome, Phil.
Hanging upside down in my closet. How you doing, Billy? Thank you very much. How are you, Mike?
How are you?
All right, pretty good. Now we see the thumbnail here. Student Sudiksha Konanki, a student from Pittsburgh. Is she missing, or is there some foul play here? There's always, we're reluctant to name, that dreaded term, person of interest, Phil. Person of interest. It's like you either have a suspect or you don't. But the media loves that term, person of interest. Your thoughts?
Listen, I really believe he is a person of interest. If I'm investigating this case, he's the main focus of who I'm going to want to be talking to and getting the story down, because he's the last person to have seen her alive. We have that video of them walking towards the beach, early morning hours of the 6th. And I think that he is a major person of interest in my book. Now, a lot of times with the media, this person of interest, suspect, that's a title that they like to put on people when there's a major case going on, a high media event. So in regard to that, I mean, I'm going to put that to the side for now. In my opinion, yes, I want to know every movement that this guy had from the minute he was on the island. And if necessary, we have to find out what his history is. We're going to do what we call a perpology. I want to know what his history is back home, where he comes from. What is he like? What does he have any past history with criminal activity? Is there any domestic violence in his history? While he was on the island, did he have occasion to engage other women? Did he become perhaps aggressive or violent towards anybody else? There was it's a spring break situation where everyone's on vacation trying to have a good time. We know that there was alcohol involved. From the video, it does look like he appears to be almost stumbling. So I think that perhaps one or both of them could be intoxicated. So there's a lot of different components here, but the NYPD would do a much thorough investigation. You have the Dominican officials and you also have the FBI involved. So in my opinion, yes, calling him a person of interest, yes, 100% he's a person of interest in my mind.
Mike, a problem here, of course, now, we don't know exactly what the law is in the Dominican Republic, but they're holding this young man who has been identified as Joshua Reby, and he is from St. Cloud State. He goes to a school in Iowa. He's 22 years old. Now, how long can they hold him under just person of interest, if that's what they're calling him?
Yeah, Billy, it's strange. I don't know. Again, Dominican law in the United States would probably be 48 hours. To me, I don't like I agree with you and Phil. I do not like the term, person of interest. I like the term witness. I like the term, material witness. I like the term, suspect. It could be that he may be considered a material witness who may not have actually committed a crime, but as a suspect or a person of interest, but perhaps was there and understood that she was in distress and did nothing, that sort of thing, perhaps under Dominican law. But in the United States, it'd be about 48 hours because the prosecutor, there'd be a writ of habeas corpus from the defense attorney, or his family would get an attorney, hire them in the Dominican Republic. And then within 48 hours, the government in Dominican Republic, the prosecutor would have to show cause why he needs to be held. But it's a situation where you don't want to call a person a suspect. I like the term witness. The person of interest thing is kind of vacuous. We use it all the time in America very differently. I really don't like it at all. But I think at this point, once he's been interviewed by, say, perhaps the FBI, the local police, that sort of thing, if you know where he lives, he's an American citizen, and at first blush, it doesn't appear that he is actually a suspect in some sort of homicide, I think really 48 hours is the most that you should hold him and then let him go.
Billy, can I just make one quick?
I want to go to this video.
All right, go ahead.
A college student from the U.S. goes missing on a spring break trip to the Dominican Republic. Nate Foy has more on what that search stands today.
A desperate search is underway for 20-year-old Sudiksha Konanki. The University of Pittsburgh student was on a spring break trip with friends in Punta Cana, where she went missing early Thursday morning.
We want to find her. We want to hopefully find her safe and sound. Right now, there's just so much that we don't know.
Konanki arrived at the Dominican Republic on Monday. and was last seen on surveillance video at 4:15 a.m. Thursday morning, heading to the beach with a group of people. Surveillance cameras capture that group later returning without Konanki, who is believed to have stayed behind with a young man. According to local reporting, authorities are now interviewing him to determine what happened leading up to Konanki's disappearance. Some local reports say authorities believe she may have drowned, but officials in Loudoun County, Virginia, where Konanki is from, say there's currently no evidence of that.
So the principal thing that you do in a situation like this is the FBI and our partners, the Dominican Republic, Civil Defense, and the Dominican Navy, they're searching for it, but they're also collecting as much information, putting together a footprint of exactly what and where she had been.
Konanki was officially reported missing 12 hours after she was last seen. Several Dominican agencies are conducting search efforts, with the Dominican Navy assisting and 4 drone teams deployed. Authorities in the U.S. and Dominican Republic are continuing to interview additional witnesses, and they are continuing to review phone and video records. In New York, Nate Foy.
So when they refer to this date as Thursday, it's a week ago. So she's been missing for a week now. That's pretty disturbing. Another disturbing little fact here is in this resort in Punta Cana, since January, 4 people have drowned at this resort. So the ocean and the currents around this resort are really severe. So it's not out of the question that she could have drowned. Yet no one is reporting seeing her go into the ocean, yet her clothing was found on the beach with apparently no signs. I mean, you can't really, no signs of any tearing or ripping or anything that would have indicated any violence. So there's just some assumptions, and they're digging. This investigation is continuing, and the FBI, the Dominican police, they're all working on this case. And right now, they don't seem to have that much. They're naming this young man who's in this thumbnail, and his name is Joshua Reeby, as a person of interest. But we don't know. They haven't released. Apparently what they have is just that his story had changed a number of times, and everyone that was involved was apparently intoxicated. And someone asked the question in the chat before, did he know Sudiksha before they met at this resort? And the answer is no. Phil, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, what I was going to say was the latest report that I saw just before we went on the air was that the Dominican authorities were holding his passport, and they requested him to stay in the Dominican Republic based on the current and pending investigation. Now, with regard to the clothing that were found, the reports that I saw said that the clothing was found on a lounge chair in the area where they went towards the beach, and there was no signs of violence. What that means to me is, and I'm reading between the lines, perhaps like you said, Bill, none of the clothing was ripped, torn. There was no bloodstains or anything of that nature. But however, that alone does not indicate to me that there was no foul play. Now, we don't know what transpired when they went into the ocean, if they went into the ocean. Now, I can attest to the fact that the water in Punta Cana, very rough. I was there about 20 years ago. The whole time that we were there with my family, we didn't go into the ocean. We just went in to wet our feet a little bit. We saw that the water was rough, and we stayed by the pool the whole time. So I think that there is definitely a concern. As you said, Billy, 4 people have drowned just in this year at this resort, in this last only 3 months into the year. So I think that that's one of the concerns. And I think that one of the key things, and probably the most important thing, is if the recovery of her body is done, we can have an examination by a medical examiner, and perhaps we can get a cause of death. We'll know if there was any signs of trauma to the body, if there was any signs of foul play. And I think that that's probably one of the most important things at this point and there's a massive search going on. I mean, it's reported sea, air, and land, drones, helicopters, boats, divers, canine, human personnel, and volunteers. So there is a major, as you said early on, Bill, this is a full court press. And if they recover her body, and I think it's assumed at this point that she is in that ocean, I think that would be very, very helpful to the investigation and very telling with regard to the cause of death.
Bobby Chacon, our friend, retired FBI agent, who ran the FBI dive team when he was there. He was on News Nation the other night. Let's see what Bobby Chacon had to say here.
President of the Dominican Republic thinks Konanki may have been involved in an accident, and he has ordered a, quote, special search operation in the ocean. Our next guest spent years diving for the FBI and established their underwater forensic program. Bobby Chacon joins us again. Bobby, welcome back to the show. Although it's on an awful story, what would divers look for in the ocean? There are strong currents there.
That's right, Elizabeth. And you normally you won't put divers in the water unless you have a finite area to search. So unless you've narrowed it down to an area where you think this person may be. And as you've seen some of these helicopter shots, the water there is crystal clear. You can actually search from the air with those drones you mentioned and with those helicopters you saw on your shot there, how crystal clear that water is. So if there's a body down there, you could probably see it. The thing you want to know is where it could have drifted to. You want to know the prevailing winds, the prevailing currents in that area, and so where that body might have drifted. Because over a number of days, that body's going to move. You're not in a lake, you're not in a river. You know, the body's going to move, and so you want to know which way it's moving, and then you want to concentrate your searches in that direction.
The waters in this area can get rough, even though it looks pristine and beautiful in this video and these pictures that we're showing you. 4 tourists were just swept away and drowned 2 months ago, right around this area. It was worth saying, though, authorities recovered their bodies soon afterwards. They have not found hers.
That's right. That's what's strange about this is that her body has not surfaced yet and drifted either to the shore, either up or down that beach somewhere. So that is unusual to go this long and not. And like you said, there's a very recent example of just several weeks ago of that happening and the bodies being located. So you know you're doing 2 parallel investigations. You're doing one on the drowning and one on the possible foul play, and both are kind of moving in the same direction. The interviews with that young man from Iowa are crucial, not only on the foul play side, but on the search side. I want to know, what was she wearing? Where was she in the water exactly? How far out she was and things like that, because that will all determine if she went under a rogue wave, when and where it happened is crucial. The last known spot is going to be your starting point. From where you start your search.
This 24-year-old man says that he got out of the water, that he was feeling sick, that he'd had too much to drink, and that he eventually passed out on the beach. Apparently, the woman's sarong was found on a lounge chair, but there were no signs of a struggle of any kind. What do you make of that?
Well, I mean, look, the physical evidence, or lack thereof, but the physical evidence that you do see, like you said, her sarong not ripped, if it's not ripped or anything like that, and there's no overturned furniture with blood on it or anything like that, it matches his story in that they were together in the wave. They were both heavily drinking that night. And she got knocked by a wave. They both got knocked by a wave. He was able to probably hands and knees drag himself out of the water, but he was so inebriated that he could barely get to a lounge chair to fall asleep or pass out. And then he wasn't thinking about her. I mean, that's his story. I'm saying not that that's what happened, but his story does match up with what we know so far. Until we come across something else that will indicate foul play, that's what you have to go on. So they're smart to keep the dogs on the beach and extend up and down the beach, keep the drones going, keep the helicopters up, keep the boats in the water. It's a little too soon to have divers in the water because you don't know exact spot. But you can use boat-towed sonar, which looks very far out, and you can analyze that sonar data. So there are a lot of things you can do to be looking for her in the water now, while the possible criminal investigation is going along on land, talking to the people they were with that night and that kind of stuff.
You have to take a very deep dive into all the people that were around from the minute all these 2 groups of people that Sudiksha's friends' cell phones are going to come into play. The first thing I would want a search warrant on the person of interest's cell phone. Chances are, if there is, and I'm not saying there is, but if there is any foul play, chances are he texted someone to tell them what happened. And that could be key in this. So all of these things, of course, take time. The FBI, as we know, is in this, as well as the Dominican police, which is apparently the lead law enforcement agency that's involved in this. But this is a slow-moving investigation, Phil.
Yeah, Billy, one of the things that kind of disturbed me a little bit is the fact that she wasn't even reported missing till 4 p.m. the next day. Now, her friends apparently went on some type of a junket or whatever it was, and that they didn't realize that she had been missing till 4 p.m. I mean, she's missing from probably 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning, and she's not reported till 4. So again, like Bobby Chacon pointed out in that last video, what were the currents like? You know, her body could have traveled a great distance in that period of time. One of the other things that Bobby brought up, and I agree with it, because I was parasailing a few years ago down in South Florida in Marco Island, and the waters are basically same type of water between the Dominican Republic and that area of Florida. And we were up in the, in parasailing, and we could see the bottom of the ocean, and the depth of the water in the area where we were, I asked the person that was taking us on the boat, was about 15 to 20 feet. And you could see these giant sea turtles moving around on the bottom of the ocean. So I think that Bobby makes a good point there. A lot of the search could be done from the air with drones, helicopters, small planes. And I think they have to take into account, obviously, the area where the body could have gone to based on the currents. So that's going to be an important factor. And, when you talk about being intoxicated, it impairs your ability to do almost anything. Specifically, now you're in the water and you get hit by a wave, that being intoxicated is definitely going to play into, diminishing your capacity to extricate yourself from the ocean. So in my opinion, at this point, what we know, based on the facts that are being presented, it sounds like this could be a horrible accident. However, I think I pointed this out to you, Bill, before we went on the air. I would want to really look at his statements to the police. Is he being truthful? And I think as a trained investigator, I'd be able to pick up on whether or not I believe he's being evasive towards the investigators, or if he's being fully compliant and truthful.
You know what really clouds this whole thing is the alcohol involvement, the intoxication, because people do things that they ordinarily wouldn't do. They take risks that they ordinarily wouldn't take. This was like, 0400 something 30 in the morning. And they were drinking like it was the afternoon. Obviously it impairs your judgment. You're not afraid of anything. You see rough water. Oh, I'll go in there. And you're even less capable to swim because you are intoxicated. This could very well be a horrible accident, but as we all know, with investigation, you must eliminate possibilities. And since they're naming this young man as, a person of interest, quotations, they have to shut the door on that. Professor Mike.
Yeah, Billy, that's where you have to start. That's the epicenter of the whole thing. And the problem was, everybody knows that. And it's not like he's lying. Everybody knows that they were drinking heavily, and he was drinking heavily too. And they were all partying. This is what they were doing on spring break. And that's kind of fairly normal for these college kids. However, he goes out with her. We have him on the videotape. She's going to the group. They come back without her. She wants to stay with someone. And so the guy's name is Joshua Ribby. He's changed his story a little bit, however, and that really makes me very wary of his truthfulness. However, his first story probably was maybe 12 hours, maybe afterwards. At least, like Phil said, she wasn't even reported missing for about 12 hours. So maybe the first time he actually spoke to somebody was about 12 hours later. He's probably getting over a hangover. He's probably not remembering what he did. Because, again, you're out on a beach and it's pitch black and there's waves crashing. You may have forgotten what time it is yourself. You may have lost track of time. You're having fun. So I don't mind so much that his story may change a little bit. Because, as you wake up and you get more clear-headed, the fact is he probably, unfortunately, does not have a lot of facts that he could actually remember, which kind of makes him look more like he's lying. But that's the problem. All that alcohol on top of the facts in a dark beach at night makes for a very difficult starting point for this case.
I want to get back to, let me finish up the recording from Bobby Chacon on News Nation.
The FBI is now on the case, and I'm just curious, given all your experience not just in the FBI, but as an FBI diver. Is it possible if she drowned that we will never find her body? You know,
unfortunately, that is possible. And when you're talking about the ocean like this, you have the Atlantic Ocean to the north, you have the Caribbean Sea to the south. So you have, two huge bodies of water amassing there, and you have this kind of strait between the Dominican Republic and Puerto Rico. So you do have areas where that body could be, drift out to sea under the water. And quite frankly, in warmer Caribbean waters, the sea life is very active, and a human body breaks down in the seawater, and it can be consumed often by sea life. It could be that we never find her.
Oh, it's just so heartbreaking for the Konanki family. This comes as, we've got tens of thousands of American kids heading down to the Dominican Republic, the Bahamas, all these places for spring break. There's a real message here. She was on spring break with some friends of hers from the University of Pittsburgh. You've got to be careful on these trips, and you've got to be careful when you've been drinking.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to sound like the old man, the grandfather of the crowd, but like nothing usually happens good after midnight, or when you're drinking heavily, especially in the water. I know how powerful the ocean can be. It's not a place to fool around. And, it's just to be careful. Don't leave your group. When you're in a group, stay in a group. If you want to, pair off, don't go in the water. And I'm talking only from the diver's perspective. Stay out of the water at night. It's a dangerous place, particularly if you're alone or just with one or two other people.
Thanks so much.
So, it's amazing, but I'm seeing some of you folks in the chat talking about that you don't feel safe in the Dominican Republic. And a lot of these countries in the Caribbean, they will tell you, do not leave the resort area. If that gives you pause or creates pause, it should, because what they're telling you is it's dangerous outside the resort. So do some of these dangers from outside the resort come into the resort? And the answer is absolutely yes, they do. And these Caribbean countries spend a lot of money to try to silence bad things that are occurring. Look at this resort here in Punta Cana. 4 people have drowned since January. I mean, I don't think
we haven't heard about it, Bill. You don't hear about that anywhere.
No, but I don't think I would want to go to a resort that had ocean currents that severe that 4 people have drowned since January. It's only March. How many do they have in a year? That would really concern me. Besides the other things when they talk about it, even the folks in the chat are talking about it's not safe there in the Dominican Republic, and not just the Dominican Republic. Many other, there's someone right in the chat, Jessica Lee. Me and my husband took a tour of the tobacco factory from booked through our hotel when we were there. I felt unsafe even on a hotel-sponsored trip.
Of course.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So,
of course,
the hotels, who do you think they're getting their personnel from? They're getting their personnel from the community. So the community that's working in these hotels, some of them can be players themselves. I hate to say that, but it's true. Mike.
Yeah, Bill. I mean, that's the thing. I remember going to Jamaica many years ago, and they said, don't leave the resort. And the moment, you leave the resort to go into town, you're besieged because they can tell you're an American tourist immediately. And they figure that every American tourist is wealthy. And it was very uncomfortable. Yeah. Phil's right. We got out of our taxi cab in the middle of the downtown area, and within 30 seconds, I was like, "Could we get a taxi? Could we get a taxi back to the resort?" Because it was like the biggest mistake we made. So you have to be careful. It doesn't matter if you're in America or anywhere else, but especially if you're in a foreign country, and if they realize you're an American, they automatically assume you have money, a lot of money, and compared to them, you do. But that makes you a walking target. And we know this, like, for instance, with Mexico, they're dying for tourists because the reputation is such that it's been ruined. But no matter where you are, as Bobby Chacon said, nothing good happens after midnight after you've been partying and drinking, and especially if you're near water. You got to be more sensible. The problem is your sensibilities are affected to the point where, as you said, Billy, you feel like, who cares? You don't have the fear in you. Let's just have some fun. And sadly, this is one of those situations.
You know, Bill, I wanted to make a comment regarding something that Mike said earlier. Now, I think this is going to be very, very important. Now, he's on the beach. If what his story is, what he's saying is correct, he wakes up at some point. He leaves the beach. He must engage his friends. What happened, guy? What, oh, did you go for a swim? What'd you do? And he has to have some type of response, like, well, I don't know. I got hit by a wave. She was gone. She must have went back to her room. That's going to be key. I want to talk to whoever it was that he engaged. And Billy, you brought up another important thing. Perhaps maybe he texted someone. What was his conversation when he became sober again and he woke up 8 o'clock in the morning? I think it was 8:55 a.m. is when he was seen leaving the beach. Who did he talk to? What did he say? Did he say, oh my God, there was a horrible accident? She went in the water. Did he say anything? It doesn't appear that he reported anything to the authorities. And one of the other points I wanted to make was Bobby Chacon brought it up. He doesn't want to sound like the grandfather, but her friends left her. That's horrible. I mean, I know she was with this boy and perhaps they were talking about maybe going swimming or something of that nature. But this is what I have 3 daughters that are in that age group. I mean, my daughters go from 20 to 26 years old. And, when they're out with their friends, do not leave your friends. Try to stay together. Perhaps if 3 or 4 of her friends were there, they were with a group and they saw that she was struggling in the ocean, a wave took her, perhaps they could have alerted someone or maybe tried to save her. So I think that's the big message here. No matter where you are, I mean, this could happen in the United States. It could happen at a local beach. It's late at night. It's dark. There apparently was some type of a power outage that caused a lot of people to go towards the beach that same time that this happened. So I think the real point is, try to stay together. I mean, there's not much security, power outage going on. Maybe no one's around. If the friends were there, I think maybe this might have ended a little differently. And I think that was really, he was so inebriated, he couldn't do anything to help her. He got hit with a wave and supposedly he vomited and then fell asleep on a chair. So she was out there maybe struggling, if that in fact is the case. So I think there's a lot to be garnered from the investigation. And like I said, things that he said when he did return from the beach, I think that's going to be pretty important. Eyewitness testimony with regard to what he said, what his actions were. Did he say nothing and just blew it off? Was he covering something up? So I think that's going to be very important.
Absolutely. Folks, this is Police Off the Cuff, real crime stories. If you like real crime, true crime from a police perspective, you're in the right place. And if you're not subscribed, hit that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, hit that like button, share us with your friends and your family. If you want to contribute to us financially, we have a Patreon with 4 different levels. We also have a YouTube channel membership with 5 different levels. And we appreciate all of our fans, our friends, our subscribers that keep this channel going and keep us thriving through this treacherous YouTube climate. Just kidding. But we appreciate all you guys that give us the support we need to stay on the air. I want to play this little short clip from CNN.
Breaking overnight, we're now getting a look at a screenshot of surveillance video showing the missing U.S. college student in the Dominican Republic. It still show Sudiksha Konanki. Sorry, I said her name wrong. It's Sudiksha. With her friends at the Rio Republic Hotel in Punta Cana on Thursday morning. The group went to the beach that morning, and investigators say she stayed behind with a young man. Police say he is not a suspect, but he has told different versions of the last time he saw her. Joining us now is Daniel Bruner, a retired FBI special agent and president of the Bruner Sierra Group, a forensic accounting and security firm. Thank you so much for being here. First, the young man who was believed to be the last person who was with her and who saw her has told police several different stories. What does this usually indicate to investigators?
Well, most important thing about here is all the investigators are not going to look at just one possibility. They're considering all the possibilities that she may have been kidnapped, that she may have drowned. Obviously focusing on, there are some investigators that are going to be talking to this young man and finding out exactly what happened, his story, what he remembers. And obviously from what we've understood, allegedly, the story has changed up to 3 or 4 times. And we have to understand that he may have been drunk, he may not remember, he may have been passed out. So we have to consider all the possibilities in not only focusing on one individual and not only focusing on one possibility, but looking at all the possibilities But having this individual is very similar to the Natalie Holloway situation. You know, having some investigators focusing on him, that's very important to figure out because his information, he was the last one to see her alive, allegedly, is very important.
When you get several different versions of what happened from someone, in your experience, do these stories often have kernels of truth in them that investigators can sort of use to go on to try to figure out what really happened?
Absolutely, because the possibility that this individual may have been involved in her disappearance, there may be some parts. So an individual, when they're being investigated, they may say little bits of truth along the lines where they're trying to tie up a lie, and they're trying to cover up their tracks and to lead the investigators. So there may be some kernels of truth in there. So that's why investigators from what I understand is the FBI is involved, the legal attaches from the Dominican Republic are involved. So their expertise will be very, very valuable into analyzing. Maybe behavioral analysis unit from Quantico, they'll be involved and they'll coordinate and help out the ALATs, and to analyze and to look into this individual's mind to see if he was involved in her disappearance. And like you said, look at the little bits of truth that may be involved there and pick out that information, and that'll provide and create new leads for the investigators.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things that this guy really is referring to, this former FBI agent, is as investigators, you don't want to get what's called tunnel vision. You don't want to just look at one direction because that's what you think is the correct direction. You want to start the investigation with the widest berth you possibly can. We always used to say, put the biggest net you can out there. And then as the investigation sort of starts to get fine-tuned, you start pulling the net in, right? You start narrowing your investigative thoughts, your investigative leads, your investigative steps. And then you may be either targeting a person of interest, as they say, or you may be pursuing, close the door on that if that's what's indicated by your investigation, and look more into the accident part of this, a possible drowning. And as we heard retired FBI agent Bobby Chacon say, there's a possibility in a drowning, if this is a drowning, that they may never recover the body. Very sad, but that's a possibility. Dorothy D, thank you so much for your $4.99 super sticker. Sergeant Bill, I haven't been following this live got me adding to my watch. Thank you, Sergeant Bill, Professor Mike, Detective Phil.
Thank you.
Dorothy D, thank you very much. So that's what we're looking for. And, you know, one of the things in this immediate gratification world we live in, everyone's looking for immediate results on this investigation. It's been a week and people are already like, oh my God, what's taking so long? Many people are mentioning Natalie Holloway. That took years to solve that case, years to come up with the truth. Let's hope and pray that this case does not. Mike.
Yeah, Bill, as you said, you know, you have to cast a wide net. I remember you'd mentioned Vernon Gebharth's book on homicide investigation. You treat every, death as, in this case, a missing person. You treat it as if it was a homicide because you want to cast that wide net. You got one chance to do it right and get it right. If you go down the path that this is completely an accident, you may lose information and you may lose witnesses, and you may not interview them properly. You may not even bother interviewing them. If you think this is a homicide and you're looking at one person, you may miss some other people, peripheral people, and never interview them. So, you and Phil have done this 1,000 times. That's absolutely right. We hope that this can be solved, quickly, but it's been a week, and that makes it really difficult because the longer it goes without a real result, the more difficult it is to get that result.
100%. Phil, your thoughts?
My thoughts are this, Billy. With the fact that there was a video surveillance camera in the area, if there's other people entering or exiting from that area in that period, let's say from the time that she was last seen till when he comes off the beach, I'm going to want to try and identify those people. And as you said, Billy, you want to cast the widest net possible when you're doing this investigation. You want to eliminate all the things, all the possibilities that come in front of you. And like you said also, Bill, and I agree with 100%, you go where the investigation takes you. The most likely scenario based on what you're uncovering. So when you have some interviews and people tell you, well, I was on the beach and I did see two people maybe going into the water for a swim, even though it was, 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, that might give a little more credence to his story. Again, the video surveillance, I think, is going to be very important. There's probably multiple cameras in that area. You're going to want to know if anybody else, we don't know if perhaps she did make it out of the water and then something else occurred, someone else other than this gentleman from I think his name was Joshua. Maybe someone else interjected into the situation. So you're going to have to look at all of the possibilities, and you're going to make eliminations as you go forward, just like you said, Billy, and you're going to go wherever the investigation takes you. Now, in the Natalie Holloway case, her body was never recovered. We don't know if she was buried or if she was out in the ocean. There was really undetermined, I think, from what I know about the case. So if in this case, if something like that happens where she's never recovered, we're never going to get a definitive, 100% definitive cause of death, whether it be from trauma or something of that nature, or if it was a drowning. So let's hope and pray that this girl's body is recovered. And I think the big message here is if you're out and you're partying, spring break, try to stay together with friends. And, safety has got to be number one on your on your agenda. You have to remain safe.
The gentleman at the bottom of this thumbnail, his name is Joshua Reby, and he is from Iowa. He goes to St. Cloud State University. He's a student there. He's 22 years old. He's the last person that was seen with Sudiksha. Does that mean that anything nefarious happened? It doesn't. That's where they're going to try to develop leads from. He's the very last person that was seen with her. And one of the things I would also be doing, I'd be doing a canvas of the entire hotel, the entire resort. I'd have people out there make up a flyer like this, but with more information, perhaps this flyer here, and hand it out. Hand it out to all the tourists. Maybe someone that you haven't engaged yet saw something and they don't think it's important, so they haven't told anyone. So shaking the tree, as we call it on the NYPD, you shake the tree and you get someone that has some information that they didn't even think of offering up. Well, I saw her at such, that could happen. And that's why you need to shake the tree, as Phil said earlier on. You check every single video camera in this resort. You interview all their employees. Could something nefarious happen involving an employee of this hotel? Absolutely. So as I said earlier, you never get investigative tunnel vision. You cast a wide net, and that's the way you'll help to solve a case like this. This is from ABC.
Trip to paradise. Turning a trip to paradise turning into a waking nightmare as a sweeping search for a missing college student intensifies. According to authorities, this is the last known video of Sudiksha Konanki, the 20-year-old University of Pittsburgh student who vanished on a beach in Punta Cana in the Dominican Republic last Thursday.
The initial reaction to this case is there really foul play involved, or is this just some tragic accident?
Konanki disappeared while on a spring break trip with 5 female friends at this popular resort, the Hotel Rio. Last seen on this leaked CCTV footage. Police now reviewing that footage and trying to piece together the moments leading up to Sudiksha's mysterious disappearance. Officials say she was with her friends at a bar before heading to the beach around 4 a.m. The rest of the girls went back to the hotel around 5:55 a.m. They were seen on CCTV returning to their rooms. But Konanki stayed behind with a man who is not considered a suspect. The man telling police they went into the water and got caught in a wave.
The key I would be looking for, if this were my case, is I need to understand the male person that was with her that night, why he was there, where she met him, what conversations did they have, what was his intentions on the beach that night, and why did they go in the water, and why didn't he go back and look for her if she didn't get out of the water?
Konanki's clothes were found on a beach bed, and officials say there was no sign of violence.
What do you believe happened to this college student?
Nosotros tenemos que esperar. Estamos
esperando los resultados de las investigaciones. Se están haciendo levantamientos de las cámaras
They're combing
de
through the surveillance
videovigilancia,
video.
entrevistas a las
Interviews of
personas que la
people who
acompañaban,
accompanied her,
entrevistas
interviewing
a
witnesses,
testigos,
hotel
a
employees.
empleados del hotel.
We're
Esperamos
waiting to
concluir esa
conclude
parte.
that part of
Police
the
believe the two
investigation.
were intoxicated, the man telling police he fell asleep on a lounge chair after throwing up, later seen on security cameras returning to the resort before 9 a.m. A family friend of the Konankis telling us that the young man has been cooperating.
That's when we walked to the beach along with the boy, and the boy helped us, and he was demoing us kind of like what really happened and where he was.
With spring break in full swing, tens of thousands of students seeking the sun flocking to hotspots like Punta Cana. Sudiksha is a junior at the University of Pittsburgh. Family friends telling ABC News she hoped to go on to medical school. Sudiksha's father, Sudiksha Konanki, telling us he spoke to his daughter just hours before she went missing.
Everything was going okay. And she was really happy to have a vacation with her friends.
And that nothing seemed out of the ordinary before her disappearance.
She was good. The other next day, she wanted to go for excursion, and before that, in the resort, she was fine with the swimming pool.
Rio Hotels telling ABC News in a statement in part, from the moment her absence was reported, we have been working closely with the local authorities, including the police and the Navy, to conduct a thorough search. The safety and well-being of our guests are our highest priority, and we are fully committed to doing everything in our power to assist in this situation. The friends who took the trip with her staying behind, hoping Sudiksha is found safe. The beautiful beaches, now a major search area.
So, I can't help but, when you watch this, how disturbing it is, because it could be any parent whose young child, college-age student, goes on vacation, and the first thing you say is, you be careful. And, I give the riot act to my sons, and I have sons. Don't do this. Don't get separated. Don't go into town yourself. Always stay with a group, and don't drink too much. All the things that parents. But inevitably, if this is an accident, what are you going to mark it up to? Bad judgment? Or didn't we all make bad decisions when we were 20 years old, 22 years old? So we don't know at this early part of the investigation, which is now a week long. We don't know what happened. And, it's perhaps premature for them to call this young man from Iowa a person of interest, but they know things perhaps that we don't know. But it is a tragic, tragic situation, especially in this resort where 4 people have drowned since January. Phil.
Yeah, Billy, it is a very tragic situation, and having daughters, my youngest daughter is 20 years old. I know that the drinking age in DR is 18, and, these kids manage to get liquor, whether it be a drinking age of 18 or 20 or whatever it is. So I think the lesson here is to try and stay together and look for safety. The investigation is going to play out. I don't know if her body is going to be recovered at this point. That 8-hour time frame, it appears, before she was reported missing could have a lot to do with whether or not her body is recovered. Bobby Chacon talked about the occurrence, and I think that there is a major push here, and perhaps there will be some success in recovering her body. And I think that that's going to be a telltale sign of what took place. This kid, maybe confusion. I don't know. Maybe there could be drugs involved as well as alcohol. I don't know what his state of mind was when he came off that beach, but that would be an interesting point. And maybe ethically, he didn't do anything, and that's a crime against humanity. But in the criminal world and culpability, is he going to be held accountable for not trying to, go get help that she went into the water and didn't come out? I don't see that. So I guess we'll have to wait to see what does play out. There's a lot of different components here. And I think I was telling you earlier, Bill, I saw a live feed from cable news where they were showing the area where they believe she disappeared from. There was a bunch of boats in the area. So again, boats could interdict the remains and cause, trauma to the victim's body. So there's a lot of different components here. And, that would make the sea life that's in the area maybe more apt to to engage the remains. So there's a lot going on here.
Moose Girl 08, she could have drowned, but wouldn't her body have been found already? Not necessarily, and that's coming right from Bobby Chacon, the FBI diver. So I want to play this in that same thought. Banfield had a professional diver come on who has a famous company that finds people that are submerged in the water. Let me play
My
this.
next guest knows a few things about surviving ocean conditions and what it takes to find a body. Doug Bishop is an expert diver who focuses on missing persons cases. He's the founder of United Search Corps, and he joins me now live. Doug, I wanted to talk to you about some specifics with regard to the conditions on the shore at the time when Sudiksha may have gone missing, may have drowned. We don't know what it is. Could be both. Specifically, the tides at that exact time that those kids all went out to the beach. They were going out there at about 4:15 a.m. Were the tides coming in or were the tides going out at that time?
And that's a great question. So we were able to learn that the high tide peaked there in that particular area near the resort at 4:21 a.m. That means whenever this incident occurred, it would have been during the ebb tide, which when a tide peaks, the following flow out is ebb. And that means the current is going out. You have sweeping currents that are coming off the shore. We know there was wind advisories and also high wave advisories. He admitted that he himself was knocked down and sort of struggled to get back to shore. These type of tides will absolutely create complications, not just for survivability, but also for the search. This type of tide, if you lose an individual in it, has the ability to drag you out upwards of a mile in certain situations.
So let's talk about some other conditions at the shore, not just the tide coming in or the tide going out, but things called rip tides and sweeps. Yes. Can you explain to the viewers what a sweep is and what a rip tide is and how it might, and I'm just going to let you know that the video we're watching is from that day. So when you see a red flag and you see roiling surf right at the water's edge where it meets the sand, that was the condition that exact day.
Yeah. So a rip current occurs when you have sweeping tides that go into each other and then form a rip current out. And so it feeds the currents coming into itself and then pushes it out. And these rip tides are almost always during high tides. And they're the most aggressive during these times. And it's not everybody's prepared, but you always want to remain calm, try to swim parallel to the shore, but you definitely don't want to struggle a lot because
it's, I love that when someone says, when you get caught in a riptide, remain calm. It's very hard to remain calm when you're scared shitless because you can't head toward the shore. And that's the trick, is not to try to head toward the shore. You're supposed to swim east or west, not north or south, right? So you want to swim parallel to the shore, but it's very, very scary.
Well, they say that when it takes you, you're supposed to try and float. At some point, it does release you. When it gets further out away from the shore, it releases you. And that's when you're told to, like you said, swim parallel and then try to make your way back in.
Yeah, it releases you once you hit Cuba.
Well, quite possibly, yeah. I mean, but like you said, Bill, that's a panic moment. When you feel yourself being pulled out to the, the deeper water, I don't care who you are. That's gonna cause panic.
100%. Let me go right back to him.
There's a lot of force, and anybody that's ever been to Punta Cana knows that the currents in this area are really, really strong. Even though the waves themselves aren't stronger to what we are accustomed to in other vacation areas, these waves and the currents there in particular are very, very strong. And please stick to your resorts if you're there. The water there is 80 degrees in this particular scenario, which does aid in the search process. When you have 80-degree water, it speeds up the decomposition process in order to find human remains in such a vast body of water, such as the ocean.
I'm going to get to that in a moment because there's some issues with if someone does drown, do they sink? Do they float? When do they float? I'll get to that in a moment, but I want to stay with riptides for a moment and sweep because I have myself left a beach chair, gone into the ocean, puddled around only to look to the beach and realized I'm about 50 to 100 yards down the beach from where I went in. Is that because of a sweeping tide that takes you down a beach?
Yeah, you have a lot of these parallel currents that run along to the beach, and it happens within minutes. You can go in, you're somewhere very safe, and when you are off your feet, such as swimming or buoyant, it will take you very quickly without much alarm. And then you look up when you stand up and you're way down from where you went in. If you add, a rip current to this effect, as well as, winds and also the ebb tide, meaning the tide is now going out right after it has peaked. These things complicate, survivability and also search big time.
Let me ask you this again for those who hear these terms and wonder, well, what's the difference between a tide and a rip tide? Is this an accurate description? There's a lot of water coming into the beach with these big roiling white waves, right? And it's got to go back out. And so a rip current and a rip tide is like a narrow river that you can't see necessarily that's going out to the ocean. And it's like rapids, meaning if you end up sweeping down the beach on your back and enjoying yourself in a swim, you could suddenly end up in rapids going out to sea. Is that a correct description?
That is absolutely correct. Where you have a lot of water coming in, and depending on the underwater topography and also how they're hitting the shore and coming together, they will create rip currents, which is what typically lifeguards are from an elevated position and are looking for, which is water sweeping together and then going out into sea.
Thanks for watching.
So some good explanations there as to, if we're believing that this is part of a major accident that she could have drowned. There's lots of ways that this could have happened. And this poor girl, Sudiksha Konanki, is missing now for a week. And the investigation is still, of course, active, and they're looking at everything at this point, including this young man who some are calling a person of interest, some are just calling the last person to be seen with Sudiksha Konanki when she was alive. And he may be totally innocent. Maybe it's premature to call him a person of interest, but perhaps the investigators know a lot more than we do. Phil, we'll look at this flyer one more time. Your final thoughts.
My final thoughts of this, let's keep our thoughts and prayers with the Konanki family. This young lady is missing. I hope and pray that the remains are recovered for the sake of the family. I think if we look into the history of this young gentleman, perhaps he, has nothing to hide and he's cooperative, and it is a horrible accident. I can attest to, and we've seen several videos and other people attesting to the currents in Punta Cana being very fierce. So in my opinion, at this point, I'm kind of leaning in that direction that this was a horrible accident. And I guess we have to wait and see what plays out with the investigation.
Absolutely. Professor Mike, your final thoughts.
I agree with Phil. We want closure. Let's pray that we have closure for the Konanki family and that they do recover her remains.
Absolutely. Folks, we see cases like this. I shouldn't say all the time, but we've seen them before. And it's in one way, it's sort of not fair to conjecture, but another way, we have to look and be realistic about the investigation and see what investigators have. It's a disturbing sign that there's been no break in a week. This is 7 days since this occurred, and there has been no break in the investigation. And again, the investigators know a great deal more than we do. Let's hope we get some good news, at least for the Konanki family, and that they get some leads on this that will help solve this case. Anyway, folks, thank you so much. I'm Bill Cannon from Police Off the Cuff Real Crime Stories. Have a great day, everyone, and God bless.
Stay safe, everyone.
One episode